The sun hung low over the manicured lawns of Crestwood Estates, casting a golden glow across the sprawling homes of this affluent enclave in suburban Atlanta. Jonah Whitaker stood in his driveway at 1247 Magnolia Lane, his charcoal suit crisp despite the humid Georgia afternoon. At 42, he'd built a life most could only dream off 3 thriving tech companies, a real estate portfolio, and investments that could let him retire tomorrow. But retirement wasn't on his mind. Today was about his daughter, Sophia, the 18-year-old prodigy who'd just graduated as valedictorian from Crestwood Academy, the area's most elite private school. Accepted to MIT with a full academic scholarship, she was his pride, his legacy, and he was determined to make her graduation unforgettable. Sophia had always loved cars. Weekends spent at auto shows, her uncanny ability to name any luxury vehicle from a block away, it was their thing. Her dream ride? A pink Lamborghini Huracan, not the loud bubblegum shade, but a sleek rose gold pink she'd once pointed out in a glossy magazine. Most parents would balk at such an extravagant gift for an 18-year-old, but Sophia wasn't most kids. She'd maintained a 4.0 GPA while volunteering at the local community center, tutoring kids in math and science. She never demanded designer clothes or threw tantrums like some of her wealthy classmates. Her mentions of the pink Lambo always came with a wistful someday. Well, Jonah had decided today was today. He'd spent months working with Prestige Motors to custom order the car, its metallic finish shimmering like a jewel. The price tag? More than most homes in Atlanta, but every cent was worth the joy he imagined on Sophia's face. The delivery was set for Saturday afternoon, right to their driveway. Jonah could barely contain his excitement as the morning arrived. Sophia was at her part-time job at the local bookstore, a gig he'd insisted she take to learn the value of work. She had no clue what awaited her. He'd told her to come straight home after her shift for a special graduation celebration. At exactly 2 p.m., the delivery truck rolled up, followed by 2 suited representatives from Prestige Motors. The Lamborghini gleamed as it was unloaded, its custom interior complete with SW embroidered on the headrests perfectly executed. Jonah was inspecting every detail when a sharp voice cut through the air like a knife. "What is that monstrosity doing in our neighborhood?" Jonah turned to see Margaret Thompson striding across the street, her black business suit tailored to an almost comical degree of severity. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight bun, accentuating the scowl that seemed permanently etched on her face. Trailing her was her 18-year-old daughter, Emily, a near-mirror image of her mother's same blonde hair, same haughty sneer. Margaret was a known troublemaker at homeowners association meetings, griping about everything from lawn heights to holiday lights. Her passive-aggressive remarks about certain newcomers lowering Crestwood's property values had always carried a thinly veiled racial edge. Jonah, a black man who'd climbed from modest roots to multi-million-dollar success, had endured her for years, choosing to focus on his businesses and Sophia rather than engage. Today, though, standing beside his daughter's dream car, his patience was fraying. "Good afternoon, Margaret," he said, smoothing his jacket. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" She stopped at the edge of his driveway, arms crossed, Emily mimicking her pose. "Don't good afternoon me, Jonah Whitaker. That gaudy thing is an eyesore. This is a respectable neighborhood." The delivery team, clearly uneasy, packed up their equipment as Jonah signed the paperwork and tipped them generously. He kept his cool, though Margaret's tone was like nails on a chalkboard. "It's a graduation gift for Sophia," he said, running a hand along the car's flawless surface. "She's headed to MIT this fall." Emily scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "MIT? Please. Daddy probably bought her way in, just like he bought that ridiculous car. Some of us earn our achievements." The irony was thick. Emily had barely scraped through Crestwood Academy, her diploma secured only after her parents' hefty donations to the school's endowment. Jonah bit back a retort, recalling his grandmother's wisdom: "Don't wrestle with pigs, you both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it." Then Sophia's silver Honda Civic pulled into the driveway. Her face, visible through the windshield, shifted from confusion to worry as she sensed the tension. Stepping out in her bookstore uniform, a simple white polo and khakis, she glanced between Jonah, the Lamborghini, and the Thompsons. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, a trait she'd inherited from him. Before Jonah could answer, Emily let out a laugh that sounded more like a hyena's cackle. "Oh, look at the little princess pretending she doesn't know about her new toy." Sophia's eyes widened as she took in the car, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears of joy, not sorrow, glimmered in her eyes. "Dad, is this?" she whispered. "Congratulations on MIT, baby girl," Jonas said, holding out the keys. "You've earned every bit of this." It should have been a perfect moment. Sophia's face lit up, her hands trembling as she took the keys. But Margaret Thompson couldn't let it stand. "This is disgusting," she shrieked, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter glass. "Flaunting wealth like this, buying ridiculous cars for kids who've never worked a day in their lives. This is what's wrong with Crestwood." Sophia's smile faltered, her shoulders tensing. She'd faced Margaret's microaggressions before, digs disguised as concern, but this was a direct assault on her moment. "Mrs. Thompson," Sophia said, her voice calm but firm. "I've worked at the bookstore for 2 years, volunteered at the community center every weekend, and earned a full scholarship to MIT. I'm not sure what you think you know about me, but don't lecture me." Margaret stepped closer, her posture menacing. "I know exactly how your family got this money. Drugs, probably, or some other illegal nonsense. People like you don't earn this kind of wealth legitimately." The air went still. Even Emily seemed startled by her mother's blatant racism, though she didn't contradict her. Jonah felt a cold fury rising, one he'd suppressed for years. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and dangerous, a tone his business rivals knew well. Margaret doubled down. "Don't play innocent, Jonah Whitaker. You move in here with your flashy cars and shady businesses, throwing money around to prove something. Real success doesn't need to show off like this. My businesses are software development, commercial real estate, and investment consulting," Jonah replied, hands clenching into fists. "All licensed, regulated, and transparent. Maybe you should mind your affairs instead of making baseless accusations." Emily jumped in, her voice venomous. "Please, everyone knows your people get lucky with sports or music or other things. Nobody believes you're a real businessman." The phrase "your people" hung like a slur. Sophia stepped closer to Jonah, trembling with anger or hurt, likely both. "I think it's time you leave my property," Jonah said, his tone carrying the weight of boardroom battles. "My property?" Margaret laughed bitterly. "This neighborhood was respectable before people like you moved in. Now it's all gaudy displays and plummeting property values." Jonah pulled out his phone and started recording. Margaret's eyes flashed with rage. "Are you threatening me?" she demanded. "Recording me on my street?" "You're on my property making defamatory statements," Jonah said coolly. "I'm documenting harassment." That's when Emily's performance began. She burst into tears, not genuine ones, but the calculated sobs of someone skilled at playing the victim. "He's intimidating us," she wailed, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "He's being aggressive. Someone call the police." What followed was a masterclass in manipulation. Emily's tears escalated into hysterics, complete with hyperventilating sobs and theatrical gestures. She clutched her mother's arm as if under attack, yet managed to dial 911 with perfect clarity. "Please help us," she cried into the phone. "An aggressive black man is threatening me and my mother. He's got a weapon and he's being violent." Jonah's blood ran cold. Sophia gasped, grabbing his arm. They both knew what Emily was doing, weaponizing her tears and racial bias to flip the narrative. "I need police at 1247, Magnolia Lane right away," Emily continued. "He's got a gun or something, and he's yelling threats. Please hurry." Every word was a lie. Jonah's only weapon was his phone, still recording. He hadn't raised his voice or left his driveway. But Emily was painting a picture designed to provoke a swift, aggressive police response. Margaret added her flourishes. "Yes, officer, we're being threatened on our street. This man is out of control." Jonah's mind raced, recalling every news story of black men killed over false reports. His success, his education, his clean record, none of it would matter if this escalated. "Sophia, get in the house," he said quietly. "Dad, I'm not leaving you," she replied, her voice trembling but resolute. "Baby girl, call our lawyer. Tell him what's happening." But it was too late. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The sirens grew louder, slicing through the humid Atlanta air like a warning. Jonah Whitaker stood in his driveway at 1247, Magnolia Lane, his hands visible, his heart pounding. The pink Lamborghini Huracan, meant to be a symbol of his daughter Sophia's triumph, gleamed mockingly behind him. Across from him, Margaret and Emily Thompson stood smugly, their performance of victimhood in full swing. Emily's crocodile tears had escalated into a theatrical display, her sobs punctuated by dramatic gasps as she clung to her mother. Margaret's face was a mask of righteous indignation, her phone now out, recording Jonah's impending humiliation. 3 patrol cars screeched into the cul-de-sac, their lights flashing against the manicured lawns of Crestwood Estates. Jonah's stomach dropped as he recognized 2 of the officers stepping out. Officer Daniel Harper and Officer Michael Trent, both with a history of excessive force complaints, particularly against black residents. The 3rd officer, a younger man with a nameplate reading Carter, approached with his hand already on his holster. Emily ran toward them, her face flushed, tears streaming in a way that might have seemed genuine to anyone unaware of her lies. "Officers, thank you for coming so fast," she wailed. "This man was threatening us with a gun. Where's the weapon?" Harper demanded, his eyes locking onto Jonah with a predatory glint. "I don't have a weapon," Jonah said clearly, keeping his hands raised. "I'm unarmed, and I've been recording this entire interaction on my phone." "He's lying," Emily shrieked, pointing at Jonah. He was waving something around, making threats. "Ask my mother." Margaret nodded vigorously. "It all happened so fast, but he was aggressive. We were just walking down our street when he started yelling." The lies were so blatant that Jonah could hardly believe they were being taken seriously, but he saw the officer's body language shift. Harper's hand tightened on his holster. Trent's posture grew rigid. "Sir, step away from the vehicle and put your hands behind your head," Trent ordered, his tone already assuming guilt. "Officers, I'm the homeowner here," Jonah said, gesturing toward his house. "These women came onto my property and began harassing me and my daughter. Everything they're saying is false, and I have video evidence." "Hands behind your head now," Harper shouted, drawing his weapon. The world seemed to slow. Sophia's soft sobs echoed behind Jonah as she kept her phone steady, recording. Neighbors began peeking from windows, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. Jonah felt the weight of history pressing down, centuries of injustice culminating in this moment, in his driveway. "I'm unarmed," he repeated, raising his hands and interlacing his fingers behind his head. "My daughter is recording. I'm the property owner, and I've done nothing wrong." Emily wasn't done. "He had a gun," she screamed. "I saw it. He was pointing it at us." The next few minutes unfolded like a nightmare. Despite Jonah's compliance, despite the lack of any weapon, Officer Harper grabbed his arm with unnecessary force, slamming him face first against the pink Lamborghini. The car's pristine paint was scratched under the metal buckle of Jonah's belt, a bitter irony not lost on him. This symbol of his daughter's dreams was now a prop in his public shaming. "Dad," Sophia screamed, her voice breaking. "He didn't do anything. They're lying." "Stay back, miss," Officer Carter warned, his tone stern but less aggressive than his colleagues. "Don't interfere." The handcuffs clicked into place, biting into Jonah's wrists. Harper recited the Miranda rights with a bored monotone, but his grip on Jonah's shoulder told a different story, one of relish, of power. Margaret and Emily watched with undisguised satisfaction, Margaret still recording, likely planning to share the footage at the next HOA meeting as proof of the criminal element in Crestwood. "This is what I've been saying," Margaret said loudly, ensuring her voice carried to the growing crowd of neighbors. "These people move in with their drug money, and look what happens: violence and threats." The accusation stung, not just for its falsehood, but for the nods Jonah saw among some neighbors. People he'd waved to for years, whose charity galas he'd funded, whose kids Sophia had tutored. They were buying into the narrative. Officer Carter patted Jonah down, his search more invasive than necessary, lingering in ways that felt like a violation rather than a procedure. "Nothing," Carter reported, sounding almost disappointed. "He must have hidden it," Emily insisted, her voice now desperate as her story unraveled. "Maybe in the car or the house." "Ma'am, we need evidence to search private property," Carter said, showing a flicker of skepticism. But Harper wasn't swayed. "We have multiple witnesses reporting threatening behavior. That's enough for disturbing the peace and public menacing." Multiple witnesses. 2 white women with an agenda, but to Harper, that was enough. Sophia's testimony and video evidence were ignored. As they led Jonah to the patrol car, the walk felt like a deliberate perp walk, designed for maximum humiliation. Harper pushed him forward harder than needed, while Trent kept his hand on his weapon, as if Jonah might suddenly become a threat despite the cuffs. Sophia followed at a distance, still recording, still crying. He's a software engineer, she shouted. He owns 3 companies. He's never even had a parking ticket. Her words fell on deaf ears. The officers had their story, and the Thompsons had sold it. As Harper opened the patrol car door, preparing to shove Jonah inside, he caught Sophia's eyes, filled with pain and terror. This was supposed to be her day, a celebration of her graduation, her MIT acceptance, her dream car. Instead, she was watching her father being arrested on lies while racist neighbors gloated. "I'll fix this, baby girl," Jonah said softly, hoping she could hear him over the chaos. "This isn't over." The drive to the county lockup was a blur. 8 hours in a cold, gray cell gave Jonah time to think not of despair, but of strategy. He wasn't the hot-headed type. His success came from calculated moves, and this would be no different. His lawyer, Elizabeth Carter, one of Georgia's sharpest legal minds, had the charges dropped by Monday morning. The prosecutor reviewed Sophia's video, saw no weapon or threats, and realized the case was built on nothing but the Thompsons' word against a prominent black businessman with a spotless record. But the damage was done. By Sunday evening, rumors had spread through Crestwood. Jonah was a drug dealer, a thug who'd pulled a gun on innocent neighbors. By Monday, some claimed he'd fired shots. The truth didn't matter. The narrative had taken root. When Sophia picked him up from the jail, her eyes were red, but her jaw was set with a determination Jonah recognized it was his own. "Dad, I've been researching," she said as they drove home in her Honda, the Lamborghini still parked like a bittersweet reminder. "The Thompsons aren't what they seem." She showed him screenshots from Emily's Instagram story, posted an hour after his arrest and deleted soon after. The image showed Margaret and Emily toasting with champagne, captioned, "Finally got rid of the neighborhood problem. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands." Another screenshot revealed Emily's text to a friend, admitting she'd lied about the gun to teach that uppity family a lesson. "This is good," Jonah said, his voice steady despite the rage simmering beneath. "What else?" "The Thompsons are broke," Sophia said. "Margaret's been living off credit cards and loans. Their house is 3 months behind on the mortgage, with liens against their assets." Jonah raised an eyebrow. The Thompsons had always presented themselves as old money, with Margaret's leased Mercedes and designer wardrobe. But appearances were deceiving. "How'd you find this?" he asked. Sophia grinned, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "I inherited your computer skills, Dad. Public records are a goldmine if you know where to look." That night, in Jonah's home office, they dug deeper. Margaret had borrowed money from neighbors under pretenses, had warrants for unpaid debts in 2 states, and had been stealing packages from porches. Emily was following suit, shoplifting from boutiques, and using fake credit cards her mother helped her obtain. But the most damning find came from Emily's deleted social media accounts. Hidden messages revealed years of racist rants, neo-Nazi memes, and plans to keep Crestwood pure. She'd been rallying other residents against minority families, spreading lies to drive them out. "Dad," Sophia said quietly, "they've been planning this for months. We were just the perfect opportunity." Jonah stared at the evidence: financial records, posts, texts, and photos of stolen packages in the Thompsons' garage. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. It was a calculated campaign to ruin his family's reputation and force them out of Crestwood. "They picked the wrong family," he said, his voice cold with resolve. Jonah Whitaker sat in his home office, the glow of his computer screen casting shadows across the mahogany desk. The evidence Sophia had compiled lay spread out before him: screenshots, financial records, and deleted social media posts that exposed Margaret and Emily Thompson as fraudsters and bigots. The pink Lamborghini sat in the driveway, a symbol of what should have been a joyful day but had become a battleground. Jonah wasn't a man driven by impulse. His success in tech and real estate came from calculated moves, and now he'd turned that precision against the Thompsons. Tuesday morning, Jonah donned his sharpest charcoal Armani suit, one Sophia called his corporate assassin look, and began making calls. The first was to Detective Laura Martinez, head of Atlanta's Financial Crimes Unit. They'd met at a charity fundraiser 2 years prior, where she'd vented about white-collar criminals who thought they were untouchable. Jonah sent her Sophia's findings: evidence of fake credit cards, stolen packages, and loans obtained under pretenses. "This is substantial," Martinez said, her voice sharp with interest. "Wire fraud, identity theft, mail theft. We're talking federal charges." Next, Jonah called Elizabeth Carter, his lawyer. The video of his false arrest was already grounds for civil suits, false imprisonment, defamation, emotional distress, but the new evidence elevated the case. "Jonah, this is a conspiracy," Elizabeth said, her tone brimming with professional excitement. "They documented their plan to frame you. We're looking at criminal conspiracy, false police reports, and hate crime enhancements." His third call went to Marcus Reynolds, an old college friend turned investigative journalist at Channel 5 News. Marcus had built a career exposing corruption and racism. In this story, a successful black businessman falsely arrested by racist neighbors over a graduation gift was catnip for him. "You're kidding," Marcus said, reviewing the files. "They posted about it on social media, and you've got their financials showing they're con artists? Jonah, this is front-page material." Finally, Jonah contacted Dr. Angela Brooks, president of Crestwood Academy's Alumni Association. As a major donor, he had her ear. Emily's racist posts, especially those targeting minority students at the school, were a direct threat to the institution's reputation. "These are disturbing," Dr. Brooks said, her voice tight. "We had no idea one of our graduates was spreading this publicly while representing us. This requires immediate action." By noon, Jonah had reached out to the Thompsons Mortgage Company, their defrauded credit card issuers, and the district attorney's office, supplying meticulously documented evidence. But he wasn't done. The Thompsons had made this personal, attacking Sophia on what should have been her proudest day. They'd weaponized their privilege in the police, assuming no consequences. Jonah would ensure they learned otherwise. He drove to Crestwood Elementary, where Margaret volunteered as a reading coordinator role she'd secured by lying about her credentials. Principal Denise Harris, a black woman who'd faced subtle racism in the district for years, was livid when Jonah shared evidence of Margaret's fake degrees and discriminatory actions. "She's been undermining our diversity initiatives," Denise said, her voice grim. "Always finding reasons to block minority speakers or inappropriate books." Next, Jonah visited the Crestwood Country Club, where Margaret served on the membership committee, quietly blackballing minority applicants. The club's president, wary of lawsuits and bad press, promised a full investigation. Finally, Jonah called Thomas Thompson, Margaret's ex-husband, who'd moved to Colorado after their divorce. Through business connections, Jonah tracked him down. "I've been waiting for someone to expose them," Thomas said over the phone. "Margaret ruined my credit, stole from my business, and turned Emily into a monster. I've got documentation, financial abuse, psychological manipulation, even insurance fraud. Would you testify?" Jonah asked. "I'll fly back tonight if it means justice for what they did to you and me," Thomas replied. Wednesday morning brought the first wave of consequences. Jonah sipped coffee on his porch, watching Sophia practice driving the Lamborghini, her smile a reminder of why he was fighting. At 8:47 a.m., 3 unmarked federal vehicles pulled up to the Thompsons' house across the street. Detective Martinez led the charge, flanked by FBI agents and postal inspectors. The warrant was comprehensive, seizing financial records, computers, phones, and evidence of mail theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Margaret's outraged shriek echoed through Crestwood. "This is harassment. That man is using his connections to persecute us." But federal agents didn't act on vendettas. They needed evidence, and Jonah's was ironclad. Emily ran out in her pajamas, screaming about her rights and demanding a lawyer, conveniently forgetting her family's dire finances. When Agent Rodriguez informed her that her social media posts constituted evidence of hate crimes, she collapsed into a meltdown. "Those were private," she wailed. "You can't use them against me." "Nothing's private on social media," Rodriguez said calmly, "especially when you're plotting crimes." By noon, news vans arrived. Marcus's investigation hit Channel 5 with a special report, Racism and Fraud in Crestwood Estates. The story had it all: wealthy white women living fake lives, false police reports to terrorize a black family, and systematic discrimination in an upscale community. Marcus's interview with Jonah was powerful, but Thomas Thompson's appearance was the bombshell. "My ex-wife is a pathological liar who destroyed my life and turned my daughter into a racist," he said, presenting years of evidence. "What they did to Jonah Whitaker is exactly what they've done for years." Emily's racist posts, neo-Nazi symbols, hateful rants, plans to teach that black family a lesson, were aired, proving premeditation. Dr. Brooks issued a statement disavowing Emily as an alumna and announcing new anti-racism policies at Crestwood Academy. MIT clarified that Emily had never been considered for admission, debunking her lies about her academic status. Thursday piled on more consequences. The Thompsons' mortgage company began foreclosure. Credit card companies filed fraud charges. The Postal Service pursued federal mail theft charges, and the DA announced criminal conspiracy charges for the false police report. Margaret's facade crumbled as neighbors learned she'd been stealing their packages and spreading racist propaganda while living a lie. The HOA called an emergency meeting to oust her from the board and investigate her misuse of funds. Emily's social media accounts were suspended, her boutique job was terminated, and colleges rescinded her acceptances. But Jonah wasn't satisfied. The Thompsons had tried to destroy his family's reputation and safety, turning a day of celebration into a nightmare. They'd assumed their privilege would shield them. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after the incident, Jonah stood beside the Lamborghini, watching the final act unfold. A foreclosure notice was posted on the Thompsons' door at dawn. A moving truck arrived to repossess furniture bought with fraudulent credit. Federal agents returned with arrest warrants. Margaret emerged in handcuffs, no longer the queen of Crestwood but a disgraced criminal, her stolen designer clothes looking shabby in the morning light. Emily tried to flee, running through the neighborhood she'd claimed to protect, only to be caught by 2 female agents before reaching the block's end. "This is all his fault," she screamed, pointing at Jonah. "He set us up." Detective Martinez approached Jonah and Sophia. "Mr. Whitaker, thank you. This investigation uncovered a pattern of fraud and hate crimes going back years. They won't bother you or anyone again." The charges were extensive: wire fraud, mail theft, identity theft, conspiracy, false police reports, and hate crime enhancements. Margaret faced 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Emily, despite her age, faced 8 to 10 years due to the premeditated nature of her crimes. Elizabeth Carter estimated Jonah's civil suits would yield millions in damages money he didn't need but would ensure the Thompsons' financial ruin. Thomas Thompson filed his suits, seeking restitution for years of abuse. Crestwood transformed overnight. Neighbors who'd bought the Thompsons' lies offered apologies. The HOA voted Jonah onto the board and adopted anti-discrimination policies. Mrs. Lee, a neighbor across the street, brought homemade cookies and an apology. "I should have known better. You've always been wonderful neighbors." The Pattersons next door admitted, "We knew something was off about the Thompsons. We should have spoken up." The media frenzy was intense but positive. Marcus's report sparked a national conversation about racism in affluent communities and police weaponization. Jonah received interview requests from CNN and speaking invitations from civil rights groups. Sophia became a local hero, her quick thinking and research earning her an MIT scholarship, boosts, and tech internship offers. As they sat on their porch that evening, the Lamborghini gleaming under the sunset, Sophia said, "Dad, I want to study law at MIT, maybe with computer science. What happened to us could happen to others. I want to stop people like the Thompsons." Jonah's chest swelled with pride. His daughter had turned trauma into purpose, vowing to fight injustice. The Lamborghini, once just a gift, now symbolizes resilience and justice. The weeks following the Thompsons' arrests brought a fragile calm to Crestwood Estates. Jonah Whitaker and his daughter, Sophia, had turned a nightmare into a triumph, exposing Margaret and Emily Thompson as fraudsters and bigots whose actions led to their downfall. The pink Lamborghini Huracan, parked proudly in their driveway at 1247 Magnolia Lane, had become a neighborhood icon. Kids waved when Sophia drove by, and parents nodded in approval. Jonah resumed running his tech empire, while Sophia prepared for MIT, her resolve to study law and computer science burning brighter than ever. But just as life seemed to settle, a phone call from Detective Laura Martinez shattered their sense of closure. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the sun streaming through Jonah's home office windows, casting long shadows across his desk. He was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone buzzed. "Jonah, you need to sit down," Martinez said, her voice heavy with urgency. "We've been digging into the Thompsons' background for the federal case, and we've uncovered something unprecedented." Jonah set aside his papers, his pulse quickening. "What kind of something?" "Margaret and Emily Thompson aren't who they claim to be. Their real names are Michelle and Miranda Coleman, mother and daughter con artists who've been running fraud schemes across the country for over 15 years. The words hit like a punch. Jonah had known they were criminals, but this suggested a far deeper deception. "I don't understand. Are you saying they're professional criminals?" "I'm saying they're ghosts," Martinez replied. "The real Margaret, and Emily Thompson died in a car accident in Nebraska 12 years ago. Michelle and Miranda stole their identities and have been perfecting the grieving widow and innocent daughter act ever since. Jonah's mind reeled. The Thompsons' attack wasn't just a racist outburst from entitled neighbors, it was a calculated move by seasoned predators. They targeted us deliberately? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Exactly. You weren't random victims of suburban prejudice. You were marked in a long-term plan designed to destroy successful minority families. The racism was real, but it was also a weapon. They've done this before, Jonah, multiple times. How many? He asked, dread pulling in his chest. We've identified at least 7 other families across 6 states. All successful minorities are in upscale, mostly white communities. The Colemans would move in nearby, pose as pillars of the community, then ruin their targets with false accusations, social manipulation, and weaponized police encounters. Jonah felt sick. What happened to those families? 3 lost their homes and businesses. 2 left their communities entirely, abandoning lives they'd built over the years. 1 father died of a heart attack 6 months after a false arrest. The stress and ostracism broke him. The scope of the Colemans' cruelty was staggering. These weren't just racist neighbors, they were predators who'd perfected a system for destroying lives. Martinez continued, there's more. We think they had help inside the police department. Officers Harper and Trent, who arrested you, have a history of excessive force complaints, all against Black and Hispanic residents. Those complaints were buried by their supervisor. Who's their supervisor? Jonah asked, his voice tight. Captain Robert Ellis. And Jonah, Ellis owns properties in 3 states where the Colemans operated under different identities. We believe he's been their inside man, ensuring police responses favored their lies. The conspiracy unfolded like a dark web. The Colemans weren't lone actors, they were part of an organized network targeting minority families who'd achieved the American dream. How did they pick us? Jonah asked. You fit their profile perfectly. Successful Black businessman, beautiful family, high-profile home, visible in the community. They likely studied your routines, Sophia's achievements, and your business deals for months. The timing your daughter's graduation wasn't random. They wanted maximum emotional damage. Jonah's mind flashed to every interaction with Margaret over the years, her HOA complaints, her snide remarks about property values, her probing questions about his businesses. It wasn't nosy neighbor behavior, it was reconnaissance. They were studying us, he said, the pieces clicking into place. Learning our vulnerabilities, our schedules. Exactly, Martinez confirmed. They built credibility simultaneously. Margaret's volunteer work, Emily's fake achievements, their image as old money residents. It was all to position themselves as believable accusers. How did you figure this out? Jonah asked. Thomas Thompson, Margaret's ex-husband. When he came forward, his story didn't add up. He kept saying his wife changed after moving to Colorado, becoming someone else. We dug deeper and realized he wasn't married to Margaret Thompson, was married to Michelle Coleman, who'd assumed a dead woman's identity to gain credibility, used him, then discarded him. The betrayal cut deeper now. Every encounter with the Colemans had been a lie, part of a calculated plan. What's their endgame? Jonah asked. Why destroy families? Multiple revenue streams, Martinez said. Insurance fraud from families who abandon properties quickly. Real estate manipulation, feed buy homes cheap after driving owners out. Identity theft from victims. And sometimes they targeted families with assets, accessing them during the chaos. Jonah's blood ran cold. They were after our money? We found evidence that Miranda was trying to access Sophia's college fund and scholarship accounts. She'd gathered enough personal information to file fraudulent financial aid applications and redirect funds. The violation was total. They hadn't just attacked his reputation and safety, but Sophia's future, the college fund he'd built since her birth, the scholarship she'd earned through years of hard work. There's more, Martinez added. We found their target list. You weren't their last mark. They planned to hit 3 other families in Crestwood after you. Jonah's fury surged. The Lees across the street, the Garcias 2 blocks over, the Pattersons who just moved, and all successful minority families, all potential victims. They would have kept going, he said, until someone stopped them. You stopped them, Martinez said. Your fight saved those families. As Jonah hung up, the weight of their victory shifted. They hadn't just defeated racist neighbors, they'd dismantled a criminal enterprise terrorizing minority families for over a decade. The Colemans faced federal charges that could lock them away for life. Captain Ellis was under FBI and internal affairs scrutiny, and officers Harper and Trent faced civil rights violation charges. But more importantly, the other victimized families were getting justice. Cases were being reopened, homes and businesses restored, and the truth was finally emerging. The FBI launched Operation Shattered Dreams, a task force to unravel the Colemans' 15-year campaign. Special Agents Sarah and Gwen briefed Jonah and Sophia at their home, spreading case files across their dining table. Sophia, laptop open, took notes with MIT-bound precision. She'd insisted on being involved, especially after learning the Colemans targeted her college fund. The Colemans weren't just con artists, Gwen said. This was domestic terrorism, aimed at removing successful minority families from affluent communities. Photographs showed Michelle and Miranda under various aliases: sisters in Colorado, a widow and daughter in Arizona, Southern Belles in Virginia. Each identity was meticulously crafted with fake genealogies and forged documents. How did they fund this? Sophia asked, her fingers pausing on her keyboard. Fake identities and multiple homes aren't cheap. Insurance fraud, real estate scams, identity theft, Gwen replied. But their primary revenue came from payments someone was bankrolling them. Jonah's blood pressure spiked. Who? We're still tracing it, but we found payments from a network of individuals and organizations invested in keeping upscale communities racially exclusive: HOAs, real estate developers, even local officials who saw diversity as a threat to property values. The conspiracy was staggering: a network of professional racists for hire. Sophia's voice was quiet but sharp. They were hired guns. Exactly, Gwen said. We've identified 12 families they drove out over 15 years, causing over $50 million in financial damage, not to mention the human cost. Case files revealed the pattern. The Garcias in Colorado lost their restaurant after Michelle, posing as Patricia Evans, accused them of drug trafficking. The Chins in Arizona abandoned their medical practice after Miranda, as Sarah Brooks, fabricated patient misconduct claims. The Pattersons in Virginia lost custody of their children temporarily due to manufactured abuse allegations. Each attack was honed to maximize destruction. Your family was different, Gwen said. You fought back with resources, connections, and Sophia's tech skills. You disrupted their entire operation. Sophia looked up from her laptop. Agent Gwen, look at this. She showed a spreadsheet tracking the Colemans' payments across identities. They were paid triple their usual rate for us. Someone wanted us gone. Gwen's eyebrows rose. You're right. The order came from someone with intimate knowledge of your family's routines and finances. Jonah's stomach churned. Someone close, someone trusted, had marked them for destruction. We'll find them, Gwen promised. But your actions saved the other Crestwood families and stopped their next targets across the country. As the investigation deepened, the Colemans' network unraveled. Dozens of officials faced corruption charges, and police departments were probed for civil rights violations. The Colemans had manipulated property values, buying homes at a steal after driving families out, amassing $30 million in assets now being seized and returned to victims. The Garcias, Chins, and Pattersons received compensation to rebuild their lives. Dad, Sophia said one evening, the Lamborghini gleaming under the porch lights, do you think others like the Colemans are out there? Maybe, Jonah admitted. But what you did, your research, your evidence will be studied by law enforcement for years. Families will know how to fight back. Good, she said. No one should endure what we did. The sun set over Crestwood, painting the sky in vibrant hues. What began as a graduation gift had exposed a criminal conspiracy spanning decades. Jonah and Sophia had gone from victims to heroes, saving families they'd never met. The Colemans were finished, their network collapsing, and justice was finally reaching those they'd harmed. The sun rose over Crestwood Estates, bathing 1247 Magnolia Lane in golden light. Jonah Whitaker stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching Sophia polish her pink Lamborghini Huracan. 6 months had passed since the arrests of Michelle and Miranda Coleman, the con artists who'd posed as Margaret and Emily Thompson. Their downfall had exposed a sprawling criminal network targeting successful minority families, a conspiracy dubbed Operation Shattered Dreams by the FBI. Jonah and Sophia had become inadvertent heroes, their fight for justice saving countless families and sparking a national conversation about racism and corruption in affluent communities. Life was returning to normal, as normal as it could be after dismantling the largest domestic terrorism conspiracy in modern American history. But one question lingered. Who had paid the Colemans to target them? At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, Jonah's phone jolted him awake with the ringtone reserved for FBI calls. "Jonah, I need you to come to the federal building immediately," Special Agent Sarah Nguyen said, her voice urgent. "We found who paid for your targeting, and you're not going to believe it." Jonah dressed quickly, his mind racing as he drove through Atlanta's empty streets. A business rival? A jealous neighbor? Someone from his past? At the federal building, Nguyen met him in the lobby, her expression grim. "This is going to be personal in ways you can't imagine," she warned, leading him to a conference room where Special Agent James Carter waited, files spread across a table. Video screens displayed financial records, photographs, and surveillance footage. "Jonah, sit down," Nguyen said gently. "We traced the money that funded your family's targeting through 15 shell companies, for offshore accounts, and multiple cryptocurrency exchanges. We found the source." A screen showed a $250,000 bank transfer dated 3 months before the Lamborghini incident, originating from Whitaker Enterprises LLC, a company sharing Jonah's last name but unfamiliar to him. "Someone's using my name for fraud?" he asked, confused. "Not your name," Carter said, activating another screen with corporate registration documents. The company was owned by David Whitaker, with an address in Nashville, Tennessee. A photograph appeared a man who looked strikingly like Jonah, but older, with graying hair and hard, bitter eyes. Jonah's blood turned to ice. "That's my brother," he whispered. David Whitaker, 3 years his senior, had vanished from their lives when Jonah was 17, consumed by anger and resentment after run-ins with the law. Their parents had tried everything: therapy, military school, support, but David's rage only grew. The last time Jonah saw him, David had screamed about favoritism, accusing their parents of loving golden boy Jonah, while treating him like a failure. He'd stolen money, pawned their father's watch, and disappeared. Over the years, rumors of arrests and scams surfaced, but David never reached out. "Your brother tracked your success for decades," Nguyen said, showing property records, business filings, and Sophia's school enrollment. "He hired private investigators to monitor your life, your deals, your routines, even Sophia's MIT acceptance." Jonah's mind reeled. "Why?" Carter explained. "He believed you stole the life that should have been his. He blamed your success for his failures." Screens displayed intercepted messages between David and Michelle Coleman, detailing his obsession with destroying Jonah's family. The hatred was visceral. Didn't just want Jonah to fail, he wanted him to suffer. "He specifically requested they target Sophia," Nguyen said, her voice heavy. "He wanted her to feel the crushing disappointment he believed he endured growing up in your shadow." The betrayal cut deeper than the Colemans' lies. Jonah's brother had orchestrated their pain, targeting Sophia's future out of jealousy. "Where is he now?" Jonah asked. "That's where it gets complicated," Carter said. "David died in a car accident in Nevada 3 weeks ago. But before he died, he set up escrow accounts to fund the Coleman Network's operations for 12 more families over 5 years. Jonah's breath caught. His brother's hatred was reaching from the grave, poisoning lives even in death. Nguyen activated another screen, showing a video message from David, recorded 6 months prior. His face appeared, older but unmistakable, his eyes burning with the same resentment Jonah remembered from childhood. "If you're watching this, little brother, it means I'm dead, and you figured out what I've been doing," David's voice said, chillingly calm. "Good. I wanted you to know it was me. Everything that happened to your precious family was because of choices you made 25 years ago." The 10-minute video was a twisted recounting of their childhood, David's belief that Jonah's success came at his expense, that their parents' favoritism had ruined him. It was the rant of a disturbed mind, but also damning evidence of his conspiracy. "He recorded this to be sent if he died or the Colemans were exposed," Carter said. "He wanted you to know the truth." Jonah felt a storm of emotions: grief for a lost brother, anger at the families David targeted, relief that his campaign was over, and a profound sadness for the man David could have been. Intelligent and charismatic, he'd chosen hatred over potential, wasting his life on vengeance. "What about the other families he planned to target?" Jonah asked. "We're warning them and providing protection," Nguyen said. "The escrow accounts are complex, but we're working to freeze them and redirect the funds, potentially $40 million, to the victims, including your family." Driving home through the pre-dawn darkness, Jonah grappled with the absence of closure. David's death meant no confrontation, no chance to understand. At home, Sophia waited in the kitchen, coffee brewing, her eyes sharp with concern. At 18, she developed an instinct for serious moments. "Dad, what did the FBI want?" as she asked. Jonah told her everything: David's surveillance, his funding of the Colemans, his vendetta born of childhood resentment. Sophia listened, her analytical mind processing the betrayal. "So, Uncle David, whom we never met, tried to destroy us because he was jealous of you," she said finally. "It's more complicated, but yes," Jonah replied. She stared into her coffee, then looked up, her eyes wise beyond her years. "Dad, do you think he was happy, even for a moment, when he thought the Colemans would succeed?" The question stopped Jonah cold. "I don't know, baby girl. What? If he wants to, if all that money, time, and hatred didn't make him happy and he wasted his life on nothing, that's just sad." Sophia's empathy, even for a man who'd targeted her future, reminded Jonah why he'd fought so hard for her. She saw beyond revenge to the human cost of destructive choices. "You're right," he said. "It's sad, but it's over. David's gone, the Colemans are in prison, and the families they hurt are getting justice. And we have each other," Sophia added, squeezing his hand. "Plus, my pink Lamborghini." They laughed, the tension breaking. The car, once a spark for conflict, now stood as a symbol of their resilience. The Colemans faced life sentences, their network was dismantled, and Captain Ellis, Officers Harper, and Trent were prosecuted for civil rights violations. Families across 6 states received compensation, homes, businesses, and dignity restored. The Garcias rebuilt their restaurant, the Chins their medical practice, and the Pattersons their family. Jonah's civil suits, combined with Thomas Thompson's, ensured the Colemans would emerge from prison penniless. Crestwood Estates transformed. The HO, now led by progressive lawyer Michael Chin, rooted out discriminatory practices. Jonah's election to the board signaled a new era of inclusion. National media covered their story, with Jonah and Sophia speaking at civil rights events, their voices amplifying calls for reform. Sophia's research and courage earned her MIT scholarships and tech internship offers. Her path to law and computer science was clear. One evening, as they sat on their porch, the Lamborghini gleaming under the stars, Jonah reflected on their journey. A simple graduation gift had exposed a conspiracy spanning decades, saving families and rewriting Crestwood's future. "Dad," Sophia said, "we turned their hatred into something good. That's what matters." Jonah nodded, the weight of David's betrayal fading against the strength of his daughter's spirit. The Colemans and David had picked the wrong family. Their attempt to destroy the Whitakers had instead sparked a justice movement, protecting others from their fate. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't just winning, it's winning so completely that your victory becomes a beacon for others. As the sun set over Crestwood, painting the sky in fiery hues, Jonah knew their story wasn't one of victimhood, but of triumph, a legacy that would endure. The Whitaker family's fight began with a pink Lamborghini and ended with the exposure of a criminal empire built on hate. Their story challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about racism, privilege, and the systems that enable injustice. Have you ever faced or witnessed discrimination or abuse of power in your community? How did it shape your view of justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether you've seen similar struggles or believe in fighting back, your perspective matters. Let's spark a conversation about standing against violence and inequality, and how we can build stronger, fairer communities together.